On a scorching Texas afternoon, a young woman carrying a baby makes a split-second decision that no one else dares to take. She rushes into the street and pulls a millionaire's son from the path of a speeding truck. That one act of courage will ignite a chain of events filled with gratitude, heartbreak, and the fight for a true family. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Under the heavy blaze of a Texas summer noon, the streets of San Antonio seemed to shimmer as if made of glass. The air was thick and restless, carrying the smell of heated asphalt and distant car exhaust. People hurried past with their heads down, each one focused on escaping the punishing heat. Yet among them walked Claire Ramirez, holding baby Milo close against her chest. The little boy, barely a year old, shifted restlessly, his forehead warm with a lingering fever. Claire whispered gently to him, though her words were more comfort for herself than the child. She had been caring for Milo for nearly a month, ever since her cousin vanished without explanation, leaving only a note that said, "Please take care of him. I'll be back soon." But the days stretched into weeks and no one returned. Claire had no job now, no steady income, and only $10 folded neatly inside her worn shoulder bag. With that, she hoped to cover the bus fare and some medicine for the fever that kept Milo weak. Her feet ached from hours of walking. Her old sneakers had holes in the soles, and each step pressed grit into her skin. Sweat rolled down her face, dampening the collar of her faded shirt. She had been fired from her last job at a corner cafe after arriving late too many times. No one understood that she had no babysitter, no family left nearby, and no choice but to bring Milo along everywhere she went. Claire paused at the crosswalk, eyes fixed on the small pharmacy across the street. She told herself she just needed to reach that door, buy the cheapest medicine she could find, and then continue to the community clinic. She shifted Milo in her arms, brushing a damp curl from his face. Suddenly, a sharp cry split the air. A small voice, filled with fear, called out from across the road. Claire snapped her head toward the sound. A young boy, no more than 6, had stumbled off the coupe. His legs wobbled, and in a terrifying instant, he fell to his knees right in the path of a delivery truck. Time seemed to slow. The truck's brakes screamed, tires earning against the road, but the distance was too short. The crowd on the sidewalk froze. Some gasped, some covered their mouths, but no one moved. Without thinking, Claire's body surged forward. Clutching Milo tightly, she ran with all the strength she had left in her weary legs. The world blurred around her. A roar of the truck growing louder with every step. She dove forward, reaching out with one arm and pulling the boy into her grasp. The truck screeched to a stop, its bumper halting just inches away. The sound of burnt rubber filled the air. Claire crouched on the hot pavement, her knees scraping against the ground, as she held both children close. Milo whimpered, and the boy clung to her neck, crying uncontrollably. "You're safe now," Claire whispered, her voice shaky but steady enough to calm the terrified child. Her own heart pounded wildly, a drum of fear and relief that nearly stole her breath. From the crowd, a tall man rushed forward, his white shirt half untucked, his tie askew, and his brown eyes wide with fear. He dropped to his knees, wrapping the boy into his arms. "Liam," his voice cracked with panic and relief. "Oh God, Liam." The man looked up at Claire, his face filled with raw gratitude. "You saved him. You saved my son." Claire tried to steady herself, nodding faintly, though her hands still trembled. She rose slowly, balancing Milo against her chest as the boy was pulled back into his father's embrace. People were gathering now, whispering, pointing, staring. Car horns blared behind the halted truck, but for a moment, none of it mattered. The man reached out, his words stumbling over themselves. "Please, tell me your name. I have to thank you. I owe you everything." Claire adjusted Milo, who had begun to cry again, and shook her head. "It doesn't matter," she said softly. "I just did what anyone should." Her knees stung from the scrapes, her throat dry from the heat, but she turned and began walking down the sidewalk without waiting for another word. She felt the weight of the man's gaze following her, but she kept moving, whispering to Milo to calm him. Behind her, the father held his son tightly, still staring after the woman who had appeared from nowhere, saved a life, and slipped away just as quickly. And though Claire thought the moment was over, she could not know that this single act of courage on a burning summer afternoon would alter the course of her life forever. 2 days after the scorching afternoon that changed everything, Claire Ramirez sat in the crowded waiting room of the community health clinic. The ceiling fan spun lazily above her, creaking with each slow turn, but it barely moved the heavy air. The smell of disinfectant mixed with sweat and coughs from dozens of patients packed into the small room. Claire shifted baby Milo in her arms. His cheeks were still flushed from a stubborn fever, and his soft whimpers pressed on her heart like a weight she could not lift. She tried to stay calm, but exhaustion carved deep lines on her face. She had been waiting for hours, clutching the last of her money in her bag. She knew it might not even be enough for medicine. Claire looked around at the tired faces, at mothers soothing children, at men staring blankly at the wall, and reminded herself that patience was her only choice. Just as she adjusted Milo's blanket, the door opened, footsteps echoed, and a man stepped inside. His light blue shirt stood out sharply against the gray walls and worn seats. Claire froze when she saw him. It was the man from the street, the father of the boy she had saved, Daniel Hart. His gaze swept the crowded room, searching, until it landed on her. He smiled softly, almost in relief, and walked closer. Claire immediately looked down, pretending to fix Milo's sleeve. Her heart raced, unsure why he had come. "Miss Ramirez," Daniel said gently, as though afraid to startle her. "I hoped it was you." Claire's eyes lifted briefly, startled by the sound of her name. How did you find me?" she asked. Daniel sat down in the empty chair beside her. "I asked around near the street where it happened. Someone told me they'd seen you near this clinic. I'm sorry if that feels like intruding, but I needed to see you." Claire's arms tightened around Milo. "There's no need," she murmured. "I don't want anything. I just did what anyone would have done." Daniel's eyes softened as he glanced at Milo. The baby whimpered and shifted restlessly, sweat dampening his small curls. "He's sick?" Daniel asked quietly. "A fever," Claire replied, her voice low. "We've been waiting all morning." A silence passed between them, filled only by the hum of voices and the occasional cough from across the room. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "I know a pediatrician at a private clinic," he said. "It's quieter than here, and there would be no charge. If you'll allow me, I'd like to take you both." Claire shook her head quickly, her pride rising. "I can't accept charity." Daniel's expression grew firm yet kind. "This isn't charity. You saved Liam's life. You didn't hesitate when no one else moved. Not everyone would run into the road. You did." His words carried a weight that made Claire hesitate. Milo let out a weak cry, and Claire glanced down at him, her heart twisting. She could see sincerity in Daniel's eyes, not pity, not superiority, but something gentler, something she had not felt directed at her in a long time. After a long pause, Claire nodded faintly. "Only for Milo," she said. Daniel stood, offering his hand to help her up. She hesitated, but finally placed her hand in his, surprised by how steady his grip felt. Later that afternoon, Claire found herself stepping into the Hart residence with a single worn suitcase and Milo clutched close. She told herself it was temporary, just until she could find a new job. The house was grand, polished floors gleaming, tall windows flooding the rooms with light, but beneath the perfection, it felt strangely quiet, almost too still. Liam, the boy she had saved, peeked at her from behind a doorway. His brown eyes widened when he saw her. Then, with sudden bravery, he ran to her side, wrapping his small arms around her leg. "It's you," he whispered. "The angel lady." Claire froze, unsure how to respond. She crouched down slowly, balancing Milo, and gave the boy a small smile. "I'm just Claire," she said gently. But Liam shook his head. "You're the angel who saved me." That night, as Claire settled Milo into a small crib set up in one of the guest rooms, she thought of Liam's words. She reminded herself she didn't belong here. She was only passing through, a shadow in someone else's story. Yet, for the first time in a long while, she felt a fragile spark of safety, as if this house, this family, might change more than just her path. In the days that followed, Claire's quiet patience began to fill the home. She cleaned, cooked simple meals, and gently encouraged Liam to read, to play, to laugh again. Liam slowly came closer, first sitting near her during story time, then asking to help with small chores, and finally smiling freely in her presence. Daniel noticed. He saw the way his son leaned into her, the way Milo calmed when she sang softly, the way her tired eyes still carried kindness despite her hardships. And without realizing it, he found himself watching her more closely, feeling something stir that had long been buried beneath his own silence. Claire, meanwhile, reminded herself each day, this is temporary. But as the days stretched, that promise became harder to believe. The days inside the Hart home began to move with a rhythm Claire had not known for years. Mornings were filled with laughter, as Liam slowly opened his heart. Afternoons, with chores and soft lullabies for baby Milo, and evenings with the quiet hum of dinner shared around a long, polished table. Claire kept telling herself it was only temporary, yet each day she stayed, the harder it became to imagine leaving. But just when the house began to feel warm and whole, a shadow returned to claim its place. One late afternoon, the sound of tires crunching over the driveway startled Claire as she folded laundry in the guest room. Liam, who had been playing with toy cars near her feet, froze and looked toward the wind. A sleek black car had pulled up in front of the house. From it stepped a tall woman dressed in a fitted designer dress, her blonde hair perfect, her eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Claire's heart sank even before Daniel appeared at the door. He moved with hesitation, as if he had been waiting for this moment, but dreaded its arrival. Liam clutched Claire's arm tightly. The woman removed her glasses, revealing sharp gray eyes that flicked first to Liam, then to Claire. Her voice was smooth but cold. "Liam," she said softly, crouching down. "It's me. It's your mother." Claire's breath caught. This was Sophia, Daniel's estranged wife, and Liam's absent mother. Liam took a step back, pressing against Claire's leg. "I don't know you," he whispered. The words hit like stones. Sophia flinched, her jaw tightening as she looked sharply at Daniel. "You let him forget me, after everything." Then her gaze turned to Claire. Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "And who is this? The babysitter? Or something more?" Claire's chest burned, but she said nothing. She looked at Daniel, waiting for him to speak, waiting for him to stand beside her. Daniel hesitated. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "Claire has helped Liam a lot." Helped. The word landed heavily, reducing everything she had given. The sleepless nights, the gentle patience, the warmth she had poured into this home, to something temporary. Something replaceable. Sophia's laugh was sharp. "Helped? So much that my son calls her mother?" Claire's heart clenched. She could bear poverty, rejection, endless struggle. But in that moment, standing in front of the boy who needed her, and the man she had quietly trusted, she felt erased. She nodded slowly, keeping her face calm though her insides trembled. "I understand," she said quietly. That night, after everyone had gone silent, Claire packed her small suitcase. She folded a few clothes, tucked in Milo's blanket, and added 2 of Liam's books he had once insisted she keep near. Each item felt like a piece of herself being torn away. Liam stood in the doorway, his eyes red and swollen. "Don't go," he whispered, his voice trembling. "You promised you'd stay." Claire knelt down, holding him tightly, her own tears falling fast. "Sometimes we have to leave, even when we don't want to," she whispered. Liam buried his face against her shoulder. "I don't need my birth mom," he said through sobs. "I need you." Her lip quivered, and she kissed his forehead. "I need you too," she whispered, "but I don't get to choose." When she walked out of the house that night, she did not look back, not because she wanted to be strong, but because she knew if she turned, her heart would shatter completely. The next day, silence filled the heart home. Liam refused to eat. He sat curled on the couch, clutching his pillow and whispering questions no one could answer. "Where is Claire? Where is Milo's mom? Why didn't she say goodbye?" Daniel tried to explain, fumbling over words, but each attempt only brought more tears. By the second night, Daniel found himself pacing the empty hallway. He stopped at the guest room that had once held laughter and warmth. Now it was bare, stripped of life. The house had returned to its polished perfection. But it no longer felt like home. It was then that Daniel realized the truth pressing deep into his chest. He had let the one person who gave his house its soul walk away. He loved Claire, not because she saved Liam, not because she stepped in when no one else would, but because she was Claire, selfless, strong, asking for nothing yet giving everything. The following morning, driven by an urgency he could not ignore, Daniel found the small apartment where Claire had moved. She opened the door cautiously, Milo on her hip, her face pale and guarded. Daniel's breath was unsteady, but his voice was clear. "I'm not here out of gratitude. I'm not here just for Liam. Claire, I'm here because I love you." Her eyes filled with disbelief, with hurt still fresh from his silence days before. "Love?" she whispered. "I don't want to be chosen just because you're lonely." Daniel shook his head. "You're not a placeholder. You're the person who brought life back into my home. The one Liam trusts. The one I trust. The one I love." Claire looked away, her arms tightening around Milo. Her heart was bruised, uncertain, but something in his voice, steady and vulnerable, broke through the wall she had built. "If I return," she said finally, "I don't need rescue. I need a place where I am loved." Daniel's eyes softened, his voice steady. "Then come back. Not as a guest, but as family." When Claire stepped back into the Hart house, the air felt different. It was the same polished place with shining floors and tall windows, yet there was a new weight in every corner. This time, she was not there as a helper or a visitor. She was there as someone who belonged. Liam ran to her the moment she entered, his small arms clinging tightly around her waist. Baby Milo reached for her hair, giggling as if he too sensed the change. Daniel stood nearby, quiet, but the look in his eyes carried a promise he didn't need to speak. The days that followed were filled with simple but powerful moments. Claire cooked meals, while Daniel set the table. Liam carried toys to keep Milo entertained. And evenings were filled with story time that ended with laughter echoing through the halls. For the first time, Claire didn't feel like she was waiting for the moment she would be asked to leave. Instead, she began to believe she was truly part of something bigger. Life wasn't without struggles. Milo woke in the night with fevers, and Claire often studied nursing books after everyone was asleep. trying to rebuild the dream she had buried years ago. Daniel supported her in quiet ways. He picked up groceries, handled late-night feedings when he could, and left small notes by the kitchen sink, reminding her he was proud of her. These gestures spoke louder than words. Liam, once shy and withdrawn, became brighter each day. He laughed more, asked endless questions, and often said out loud, "This feels like a real family." Claire's heart swelled each time, but she reminded herself that healing took time. Trust grew slowly, yet steadily, in that house. Months passed, and the rhythm of their lives settled into something steady. Then one afternoon, Sophia returned. But this time, she carried no sharp tone, no accusations. She entered the living room softly, her face pale, her steps hesitant. Claire stood quietly with Milo in her arms while Daniel and Liam watched. Sophia spoke in a trembling voice. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to let go. Liam deserves a mother who is present, who stays. And I cannot be that person." Her eyes moved to Claire. "I once saw you as a threat, but now I see you as the best thing that ever happened to my son." Claire said nothing, only nodded with understanding. She knew letting go could sometimes be another form of love. Weeks later, the family made it official in a modest courtroom. Claire became Liam's legal mother, and Daniel signed the adoption papers for baby Milo. There were no reporters, no celebrations, just four people walking out together, holding thin sheets of paper that carried a lifetime's worth of meaning. That night, Liam lifted his glass of milk at dinner and declared, "Now I really have a mom, and Milo really has a dad." The room filled with laughter and quiet tears. Time continued to move, weaving their lives closer. Claire worked hard toward becoming a pediatric nurse, and with Daniel's support, she finally wore her white uniform proudly. Liam grew into a curious boy who loved science, while Milo, once fragile, became lively and full of mischief. Every day carried its share of challenges, missed buses, late nights, and occasional illnesses. But nothing felt impossible because no one faced it alone. One afternoon, while clearing out the storage closet, Claire found an old hospital wristband, the one Milo wore as a newborn. She sat on the floor, holding it, memories rushing back. The moment she ran into the street to save Liam, the nights she nearly gave up, the pain of walking away, and the courage it took to return. She realized then that she had not only saved a boy that day, she had also saved herself. Daniel found her sitting quietly and placed a hand on her shoulder. Nearby, Liam was arranging books, and Milo's laughter filled the room. Claire looked up and smiled softly, her heart finally at peace. Years later, a photograph of the four of them laughing beneath an old oak tree would hang on the living room wall. Visitors often paused before it, commenting, "This family feels whole." No one asked who was related by blood, because the answer no longer mattered. Claire knew then what she had always searched for. True love was not a dramatic rescue, nor was it about perfection. It was about the steady choice to stay, to build, and to share life's ordinary struggles and joys together. In that once quiet house, now alive with warmth and belonging, Claire found the home she never believed she would have. She understood that real love was not about being saved. It was about someone stepping into your story and never leaving. And so what began with a single act of bravery on a crowded street ended in a home filled with laughter, trust, and love. Sometimes the greatest families are not the ones we are born into, but the ones we choose to build together.